you had so much success over the years that I've always been very impressed with and inspired by. And you started out in 1970, in the radio, 72. 71. And retired in 22.
Yeah, maybe it was 2072 that I started. I retired. I retired 50 years to the day that I started.
Yeah, yeah.
Not many broadcasters get that luxury, but I did.
So he worked at 3 different radio stations when he was younger, when he was in his 20s, maybe up to about early 30s or so. And then I actually remember this in 1986. I think it was December 1986 when he got a call from WHO Radio. WHO Radio is the biggest, largest, most powerful radio station in Iowa. And so that was like a big break. He got a call from them, and you started working there in 1987. And then he worked there for about 34 years, I think. When he went there, WHO had an incredible history. Ronald Reagan worked there. WHO had always been the number one, the biggest, the best radio station. But leading up into that year, they had really fallen. Their ratings had gone down. They weren't number one anymore. Culture wasn't good. Things were not good at the radio station. And they talked to you, and they ended up hiring you. They hired him to do a radio morning show. And one thing that I've always admired about Van is that he's very comfortable looking at how something's been done and not doing it the same way, trying something else, being a little creative. And he ended up being the program director there too. Basically, they gave you the reins and said, show us what to do. He turned a failing station around, made it the number one radio station in Iowa again, put it on the map. His radio show was number one for over 30 years. So he brought 13 Marconi Awards to WHO. That's the equivalent of like the Emmys or the Oscars for radio. Huge ceremony, go out to Vegas or wherever it is, give these awards, and 5 of those he won personally. So he had a lot of success, which was really impressive. And when I think about like how did he do that, okay, of course there's a lot of ways he did that, work ethic, he was really blessed and things like that, but I think there's really one word that I always think of when I think of my dad, and that's creativity. I think that was one of his secret weapons. I saw this quote recently, I really, really liked it. It says, a creative life is an amplified life, it's a bigger life, a happier life, an expanded life. I think there's a lot of truth to that, but it's really easy to not be creative. So just as an example of some of the creativity that you brought, I wondered if you would tell the story of the Left Shoe radio broadcast.
Okay. One of our salespeople had a shoe store account, and she went out there and she came back to me and she said, this guy's got kind of a weird problem. He has 50 left shoes. And I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but he didn't have the matching shoes to go with it. And he told her, I'm just going to throw this away unless you guys got some ideas. And she said, well, let me go talk to Van. He's kind of creative. Maybe he would have an idea for this. And I said, get them. So she got them, and we took the 50 left shoes and we split them up in all of our employees. And I said, take these shoes and put them on a street corner, put one on a street corner, put them on bus stops, put them in parks, put them in people's yards, put them everywhere. And so it was divided up between all the employees. And they did that. And the next morning, I told Captain Jack, our traffic reporter, who flew an airplane, I said, here's what I want you to say. I want you to say you were flying over Des Moines and you had to tie your shoe. And so you put your foot over the edge of the airplane and your shoe fell off. And so he did that, and I said, okay, everybody, we're a big family. Let's find Captain Jack's shoe. Call this number, our phone line, if you find it. And man, the phone started ringing off the hook. They were finding them in Urbandale. They were finding them in Johnston, finding them out west, finding them on the other side. And we told people, if you find a shoe, we'll give you a McDonald's certificate. So all these people came in, and we gave them all a McDonald's certificate for his shoe. Otherwise, those shoes would have been in the dumpster, and I thought, that's not a bad radio promotion for nothing.
Absolutely. And so many, like everyone else would have seen all those left shoes and been like, that's junk, that's trash, so nothing can be done with it. So I love that creativity. That's just one example. There's a million other things that you did that were so successful, and they got people's attention, and they didn't cost a big budget, and it was out of the ordinary and everything. So and I think that's something all of us can benefit from, being creative. We could all probably be more creative at times. Everyone can. So I wanted to start out by asking you, what is creativity? What is creativity to you? What does that even mean?
I think creativity is a gift that we're all given, and some people never open the gift. Other people open it occasionally, and it's amazing. If you can work for a place that will give you enough rope to be creative, you'll either win Marconi Awards or you hang yourself, and so I think creativity is a tremendous gift that we've been given. And some people would say, people have come in and said, well, I love your creativity, but I could never be like that. I could never do that. And I said, well, everybody is creative. How creative are you? And when you were a kid, when you were a lousy swimmer, how did you fix that? You went swimming. You practiced, And creativity is something that you can practice. I mean, go down to, Lowe's down here, and walk through the store and just pick up 3 things and look at them, and you know what they're supposed to be for. But look at them and say, what else could this be used for? And I've done that a lot. In fact, around my house, I've got all sorts of things that I've done that I just kind of created myself. And in fact, I've had a couple of inventions because what I wanted wasn't there, and so I created them. But everybody can do this, and if you feel like you can't, I challenge you to, if you want to start small, but start and work on it a little bit.
So we have a full group of developers, designers, marketers, etc. How can we identify situations in which creativity could be useful, in which creativity could be an asset?
I can't think of a situation where creativity wouldn't be useful, unless maybe you're an accountant. Creative accounting has put some people in jail. But even then, I know I had a budget at work that I had to work with, and I was creative with it, not to the sense that I did illegal things, but I got creative about shifting this over here and shifting that over there. I just think any situation you're in, creativity can help you. And I know a lot of you probably deal directly with clients, am I right? Get to know them and find out their threshold for creativity. And how do you do that? Well, try some creative things with them and see how they like it. And does creativity work every time? Oh, it always works for me because I love my own ideas. But it doesn't always work for everybody else. They don't always like it. So I used to, when I was on the radio, the advertisers that I advertised, I always found out a lot about them, found out what they liked, I found out when their birthday was, I found out things about them, and then I incorporated that creatively into what I was saying. And, we had some clients that all they wanted to do was be on a screen or hear their name or something, more ego-centered. That's fine. So that's what I did. And there are others that just want straight basic stuff. And if you haven't already found that out, you'll learn that with your clients. But I think this position that you guys are in is probably one of the best there is for the opportunity for creativity. And if you're worried that it won't work or that you'll fail, it won't work and you'll fail. But if you try it and stretch it out, you'll get a lot of compliments. And to me, that, I guess I'm as ego-driven as anybody, that really drove me. Hey, we loved that thing you did with the shoes the other day. or whatever it was that we did. And I thought, well, I want to do more stuff like that, and I think you'll find that to be the case too.
Yeah. And I like how you brought up failure, because one of the things when you're creative, it's so comfortable to do what people have done before. And sometimes it's the right thing to do exactly what people have done before. But when you're creative, it seems that might increase the risk of failure. And it probably does. And of course, you have to take intelligent creative risks. I mean, we have to ensure it's going to work for our clients, that it's going to work internally and everything like that. But failure isn't necessarily a bad thing. Failure, we want to be an organization that embraces failure, because to not fail, you don't take risks. To not fail, you don't be creative at all. But it's okay to fail. It's okay to make some mistakes. It's okay if we try something for a client that doesn't quite work. I've never seen a client just immediately leave when we made one little mistake like that. It can yield really great results. So I think failing, if you fail on the same thing, if you keep making the same mistake over and over and over again, then we have a problem. But other than that, failing is a really wonderful thing. We learn from it, we grow, and it helps us succeed and become better in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I know in advertising, a lot of commercials that I did just exactly what the client said. And then I said, here it is. They said, oh, that's good. I said, I also did another one. Would you like to hear that one? Yeah. And they always like the other one better, because I just came up with a few more creative things. And, maybe that's something you could do as you're working on things for your client. Do what you would normally do or what you would expect they would want, and then have another one on the side. By the way, what do you think of this? I mean, the worst they could say is no, and you still got the first one.
That's one of the things sometimes we say here too, is we say we don't take orders. And of course the client is always right, we're there to serve the client, but it is very appropriate for us to occasionally push the client to say, well, what if we tried this, to take the client out of their comfort zone, because doing so can yield great results. Client has great expertise we don't have, but we also have great expertise that they don't have.
The client is always right, even when they aren't.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about this, but how can a person just adopt a more creative mindset?
Well, especially if you feel like you're not very creative, I've worked with a lot of people like that, and here they were in radio where they could be. But even in radio, there were a lot of companies that really were more comfortable if you weren't creative. But think of yourself, ask yourself the question, am I going through this with blinders on? That's the way I thought of my radio program, because I saw all these other radio programs that were just going down the highway of radio with their blinders on, and they couldn't go to the left and they couldn't go to the right. They just did whatever. So I thought, something, we're not only going to drive on the shoulders, we're going to drive out in the fields, and we're going to do things that supposedly you're not supposed to do. In fact, I had New York and Los Angeles radio consultants tell me I couldn't do a lot of the things that I did. And if I hadn't, the listeners wouldn't have been wowed. And that's partly why you do creativity, because it wows people, and that's very rewarding. So just ask yourself sometime, wait a minute, do I have blinders on? And just exercise your mind. And, you can use creativity with anything, with your family, with your business. I'll give you an example. When Drew was a little boy, and his brother and sister, they used to like for me to read them stories. So I did that. But I got bored with it. I mean, how many times can you read The Pokey Little Puppy and not know how it ends, And so I put the books away and I said, okay, you want a story? Name 3 things. And they said, what? What do you mean? Just name any 3 things. Okay, a pancake, a helicopter, and a fire hydrant. And I would make a story that had a pancake, a helicopter, and a fire hydrant in it. And they were just mesmerized. They'd sit there, and when I was done, they'd just still sit there. And I said, the end. They said, oh, tell another one. I said, no, I don't even know if you liked that story. And they'd say, I like that story. Now tell another one. but it was creative, and it got them creatively coming up with 3 things to be in a story. It got me to be creative to figure out how to work them together, and mostly they were pretty stupid, if you remember. But
Yes, they were.
yeah, maybe that's what made them good.
Maybe so, and memorable. Okay, I'll ask one more question to Van, and then if you'd like to ask a question about him, his career, or creativity, or whatever you want, feel free to do so. What are the enemies of creativity?
The enemy of creativity is a lot of the times you have time constraints. You got to get something done, and you got to get it done fast. Well, if you got to get it done, you got to get it done. But it's like people that write songs. I mean, Elton John writes a great song. It's his first hit, and he gets done, and he makes a lot of money. And then they say, what's next? What are you going to do next? So there's pressure on you to follow up with creativity that you do, to do more creativity. But that's a good thing. It really is a good thing, as long as you have the license from whoever you work for or whatever to do it. You will get. We had one general manager at the radio station. Luckily, this was long ago enough nobody even remembers the guy. But whatever I brought up, oh no, we can't do that. Well, why? Well, it costs too much, and we've never done it that way before, and he had every reason in the book. And the only time I ever yelled at my boss was him. I said, "Hey, you're running this place. You're supposed to be spurring us on. It's not us trying to spur you on." And he didn't work there that much longer after there. But other people's opinions can squelch your creativity if you let it.
Yeah. What questions do you have?
Gary. Isn't that just another day at the office? I got to know each of my employees pretty well. And I mean, they knew they could come into my office anytime they wanted. They could shut the door. And I knew about their family situation, not because I was nosy, but just because I was interested and I wanted to help them. And I had some employees that wanted to progress and move on to something bigger. And I told them, don't be afraid to tell me that. I'll help you. And I did. I helped. One guy has a network radio show because he did that. And so I think just really knowing people and where they're at and where they want to go, that was a big thing for me. And they felt like they could trust me. And so that was good. And, we would do critique sessions and stuff, but I hated those because I hated them when the program director before I was there had them for me, because sometimes he was right, sometimes he wasn't, But just, evaluate the product. You guys do that all the time. Yeah. Well, we had some Indy cars come in, and they were on display out at DMAC, and they set up a track, and we invited all our listeners to come out while we were on the air and maybe even get a ride in one. And I think there were 2 of them, and both of them broke. I mean, the bottom fell out of one of them. And so we had 3.5 hours, and I thought, now what are we going to do? And you just do what you can. You interview people, talk to the DMAC guy and stuff like that. Luckily, we didn't have too many of those. There was one show that I always wanted to do that I never got done, and that was I wanted to get an airplane at Des Moines International Airport and open up the airplane, and my show was on from 5 to 9, and let listeners come out and get on the airplane at 5 o'clock. Then we're going to fly to Chicago during the show, and then we were going to turn around and come back and land by 9. And you can imagine trying to do that these days. I mean, it was pretty rough back then too. And I had some interest at airlines, and but it just never happened. And darn, that's one that I didn't pull off. Yeah.
You did 22,000 stats in your time. Can you give us an example of a client or a thing that you had to advertise that initially you were like, how am I going to be creative with this?
Well, first of all, there were some that wanted me to advertise for them that I wouldn't. There was some kind of deal that you're supposed to stick on your toilet was supposed to make the room smell good. I said, I think that'd be good on the newspaper or something. But I would sit down with them, the client, and have them tell me all about it and take notes. And there was almost always something interesting in that list, and it may not be exactly what they thought, but as long as I had the basic who, what, when, and where, and then it had a real good tagline about here's what we want you to do with this information that you just heard, then it worked out. So, and you can find out in a meeting like that how creative they really, how much resistance they have to creativity, if any.
I'll give you an example of that. So one that just comes to mind is Van advertised for Hy-Vee for many, many years. So how do most people advertise for that? They have the freshest produce, they have the best prices, etc. And he decided that he was going to go to nearly all the Hy-Vee locations and sleep there. So he went to almost every Hy-Vee and slept there for one night. I remember going to a Hy-Vee.
Yeah, the first one I was there, it was Windsor Heights when it opened up. I lived there for 3 days.
Oh, for 3 days, yeah.
Yeah. They put up, Freeman Decorating put up a pipe grape and stuff, and they put a bed in there, and they told me, you can have anything in the store. I said, hey, this is cool. So I did, and I'll never forget the first night. It was hard to sleep because the Muzak was going, and the lights were like this, which is not conducive to sleep under. And so I just got to sleep. It was at midnight, and all of a sudden, right outside this grape, whoa! I sat up and I looked. And have you ever seen the guy with the kind of like Zamboni machine at Hy-Vee that I think it's a waxer or something? He started that thing right up there, and so I got up and I said, hey, is there any chance you could start over on the other side of the building tonight? And he said, oh, I got to get this done. There's a real important radio broadcast being done here tomorrow. I said, yeah, I've heard about that.
So is that creative? Yes. Is that ridiculous? Yes, it really is. But it got people talking, and it was interesting. And it was weird. I wouldn't do that probably.
That's a big thing, that creativity will get people talking. And I know when I was on KRNT before I was on WHO, they had billboards and TV ads for the morning guy and for the afternoon guy, and I was the guy in the middle, and they didn't do anything for me. And not that I was bitter, but I thought, well, if they're not going to advertise my program, I'm going to come up with something that does it, And so I started doing some of these things, and boy, everybody was talking about it. My boss even said, you're getting more advertising than the guys in the morning and afternoon are. I said, well, thank you very much.
One more question. We have time.
How's retiring? I love it, first of all, because I don't hear an alarm at 2:45 in the morning, as I did for 35 years. And so I always have had a to-do list, and it usually was like 4 pages long. And now my to-do list is usually 1 page long. The difference is everything on there is stuff I wanted to do that I put on there myself. And it's amazing how fulfilling it is to do that. And even some complicated things, but a lot of simple things. I'm growing a banana plant that was this big when I planted it. It's about ready to take over the house now. I never had time to mess around with banana plants before that.
And you love feeding your squirrels outside.
Oh, yeah. We have a squirrel farm basically in our yard. It's unbelievable. You want to join? I have a rope hanging from a tree, and I tie 5 ears of corn on there. And man, you should see it's like the Squirrel Olympics out there, So that's fun. I mean, I always thought, boy, these old people, they're weird. They sit and look out the window at the birds and the squirrels, and they go play bingo, and they watch Wheel of Fortune, and guess what I do now?
You went on vacation. I had to go over and feed your squirrels.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Don't mention it. Liz, did you have one more question?
I started real basic. I said, give me the 30-second rundown, who you are, what you have, and why anybody would want this. And so, because a lot of times I'd have people that just go on for 20 minutes about their business, and I love that, and I take notes and all, but give me the Cliff Notes version, first of all. And then I'd just say, why are you different than anybody else? Why would people want to come here instead of over to business B, That always helped me a lot.
Let's give Van a round of applause. Thank you.
And if you want any dirt on this guy, I got it.